Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so Bree, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Bree, and what was your life like before it was interrupted by the war and the Shoah?
Well, I was, pretty young when the war started. I was only like 2.5 years old. So I don't really remember much, as far as right before the Shoah as to what really happened. A lot of the information I was able to get. I had a cousin who was like 10 years older than I, and he spent many years, with us in Russia and also in the displaced persons camp in Austria. So a lot of the information I was able to get really from him. I can't really recall too much when I was only 2 years old, unfortunately. But before the war, life in Poland was it was difficult, but it was simple and peaceful. No one could have envisioned, what was going to happen to the Jewish people once Hitler came to power. But once he came to power and began spreading his anti-Semitic hatred, everything changed. And of course, World War II, as you probably know, started like in 1939 in Europe, and it was actually, I guess, France declared war in Germany, then England declared war in Germany, and that's when it all started. And my father was in the Polish army at that time when the war started. Of course, you probably know how the Germans defeated Poland in a very short period of time. So my father was able to come home, and he said, we better get the heck out of here. So we tried to go the closest place across the border into Russia, where it was controlled by Russia. That we had actually an uncle that lived there, but there was a treaty between the Germans and the Russians. So the Russians wouldn't let us cross on their side, and of course the Germans kept on trying to catch as many people as they can. So that's why we survived in the woods for like 2 years. Finally, when the treaty between the Germans and the Russians broke up, and the Germans decided to invade Russia, we were able to cross into the Russian side. So that's pretty much as far as I can tell you, unless there's something else that you need to know. So we wound up on the Russian side, and so 2 years we lived in the forest, and we try to make the best thing that we can, to live there. I hope that answers some of your questions.
Yeah, and we watched the problems with living in the forest and with the really cold, right?
Oh, well, in the winter, with winter very cold, and you just try to do the best that you can. Although we did with us, we did have some clothing, and a lot of times, we slept under the trees, and wherever, whatever we could, and try to find food. Although again, I was very young at that time, so a lot of the, again, my parents are the ones that had to obviously take care of me.
Okay, all right, Sam's going to come up with the next question, so you can pull this.
I'm Sam, and what was your life like as a teenager?
As a teenager in the United States, I assume.
Yeah. Or, I mean, so you weren't a teenager, you were young when it happened, because I think they kind of mean as a teenager before, but you were very young.
Oh, I was very young. I mean, we spent, after what happened, in other words, once we got across the border, the Germans attacked Russia, and then they took my mother and I, and we also had this cousin. It's a long story. My mother took care of him. So they put us on a train, and they sent us to Siberia, which was, you're talking about, very cold. So I went to school over there. And after the war, anybody that was born in Poland was able to go back to Poland. So we decided to go back to Poland. Of course, we didn't hear from my father. He was in the Russian army. I guess he was in the front, and we didn't have any cell phones at that time, so we didn't hear from him. But fortunately, he came back to Poland with the Russian army, and everybody started looking to see who survived. So that time he was able to find, myself and, of course, my mother, his wife and this cousin of mine. But our house was actually, we tried to go back to our house, but we found that the house was destroyed, and most of the family were murdered by the Nazis. So we figured that we're not going to stay there any longer. So everybody was trying to find a different place. So, we heard that the U.S. Army set up these displaced persons camps in several different countries, like in Austria, Germany, and I think also Italy. Well, we finally wound up in a displaced persons camp in Austria. And that was like 1945. So by that time, I was already a big boy. I was about eight years old. And we had school in the displaced persons camps. Everybody, all the kids were at that time also coming from all different places, the ones that survived. Some of them survived with their parents, some of them they're on their own, but everybody spoke a different language because some of these kids came from Romania, some from Hungary, some from Germany. So it was, quite interesting. So we had to learn to get along, different languages. Unfortunately, they didn't have any English, so I didn't learn any English. So talking about as a teenager, in 1950, we were finally able to get a visa to the United States. And myself and my parents came to Washington, PA. We were sponsored by the Jewish organization there. So by that time, I was already like 13 years old. I mean, I couldn't speak any English or anything. However, they placed me in 8th grade. I mean, I had a friend whose parents spoke a little bit of German, so I could understand what was going on. But it took me a long time to learn, English. But I had a very good English teacher, and she's a guy. Anyways, she stayed with me many hours after school until she made sure that I was getting along well with the students. So as far as being a teenager, finding what was going on, it was just unbelievable. I mean, the first thing I remember going to a grocery store, all that food that was there. I've never seen anything like that. And that's pretty much, in other words, I went through high school, and I went to the small college there in Washington, PA, Washington and Jefferson. And at that time also, I had to go into the Army, and after the Army, I came back, and I started working for someone. Then I went on my own in a business. So I hope that answers some of the.
Oh yeah.
Some of the question that you actually asked. I hope that was good enough. If there's anything else, you can go ahead and ask me.
Okay. Well, Mara's gonna come up. Introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Mara. And
Hi.
my question for you is, how did the war change you?
How did the war change me? Oh, it's a good story. It made me realize, I guess, how people have to live with each other. It was difficult. It was difficult at first, not being able to understand what was going on. As I said, I was just a small kid, and I more or less, did what my parents told me. How it changed. It made me realize, how good things are. instead of what happened. And I was very happy to come to the States. Although, every time I try to ask my parents about, how difficult, especially my father, how difficult it was, neither one of them really wanted to talk about it because they figured we brought you here to the United States and to make the most of it. So that's what I tried to do. I tried to, I guess, excel in everything that I tried, because I knew, how bad things were when I was very, very small. So I kept on pushing. Also, do the best that I could.
When did you start to talk about what happened? Because I know you said you didn't talk about it.
No, I really didn't talk much about. I didn't consider myself a Holocaust survivor. At first, I thought the people that were in like in Auschwitz, on the death camps. I think I was very fortunate, even though I was hiding and didn't have much food and things like that. But those people that were in the death camps, I mean, they suffered, a lot more than I did. You see, when I realized, what's the question again?
Or when you felt like to start talk about what happened.
What happened? So where?
Yeah. So when did you feel, you started to realize that you were
Oh,
part of that?
okay. Like in classes or something like that, I really didn't, tell anybody anything about, as a Holocaust survivor. I wanted to fit in right away, and a lot of the kids thought that I was just an exchange student from Germany. Really, it's because I spoke German, and I spoke other. When you're a kid, especially when you live with all these other kids, different languages, you pick up the language, quickly. So I didn't, I didn't start talking really much about it. I didn't really join the Holocaust Center in Pittsburgh until I really retired from work. And a lot of times, you probably had seen even like my wife and my daughter probably in the scene that they said, they didn't even know much about it. I mean, they knew, of course, my wife knew because my parents were still alive when we dated. So she came down from Pittsburgh. She's a Pittsburgher, so she came down to Washington. She understood that they were different, but we really didn't discuss, none of us discussed that we're Holocaust survivors. We just tried to make the best that we could. But as far as start talking about it, actually, my grandson was probably in 8th grade over at Pine Richland School. And I guess there were, like yourself, I think there was an English teacher who also taught the Holocaust. And she asked the kids, it says, by the way, anybody, in your family happen to be a Holocaust survivor? Well, my grandson gets to put his hand up and he said, yeah, my grandfather is. So they asked me to come to speak at their class. So that's a few years ago. So that's the first time really that I started to speak about myself. And at that time, I was able also to get a lot of information, about the family. As I mentioned to you, my cousin, actually from the DP camp, for us coming to the United States, he actually went to Israel with some young people. So every time myself and my wife and also with the kids, anytime that we went up to Israel, we went there a few times, I was getting more and more information from him about like what happened in the town, before the war and everything else. So it's been only really probably past 10 years really that I started to speak whenever the Holocaust Center needed me. Now, it's getting to be more and more now because most of the older survivors are passing. I mean, there's not that many of us left. In other words, I'm going to be like 84 years old in April. So most of the survivors are like in their late 80s, and a lot of them, especially this year, a lot of them passed away. So we have to go out and talk about it, and we hope that this doesn't happen again. To realize what can happen. To realize
we really appreciate you talking to us, because we haven't met one, and to link us up with you is such a great opportunity. So we appreciate telling your story to us.
No problem. No, and also, of course, some of the older, older survivors, even, that they go out a lot of times, and because they came here when they were older, and a lot of times it's difficult to understand. They have such a deep accent. So a few times I went out with them.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, to help.
Yeah, to help the kids understand what was going on.
Oh, all right. Well, we have another question from Sierra. Do you need it? Yeah. This is Sierra.
Hi, I'm Sierra.
Hi.
All right. What do you think your life would have been like had it not been interrupted by the Holocaust?
Whoa, what my life would be like?
Some thought-provoking.
That's a good question. We probably would have lived peacefully in the small town in Poland that I was born, because I don't know how many generations that we were. I'm trying to trace back the family, but so far I haven't been able to get very far. Now, so probably with a name like Schneider, last name was Schneider, I have a feeling that perhaps my father came to an area where the Germans many years ago controlled Poland. It's the only thing that, but I think it would not have been as good as it is now, let's say, in the United States, I can tell you that, because everybody was trying to make a living whatever they could. In other words, like I know, like my father, he was like more or less like a peddler. He went to different places, and he also spent a lot of time in the army also. So between the two things, I mean, I had an uncle who was wasn't able to make it, was murdered. He was a tailor. Another uncle was a shoemaker. So these are the people that were just trying to make a living. In other words, nobody was going to get rich, at least not in my family anyways. I know there's some people, there's some people, they owned property, they owned different businesses. So there were people, but ours didn't have those things. I guess we had food to eat, but we were not rich. So
actually, this brought you to the United States then.
Oh, well, like I told you, when I saw all that food in the groceries, I said, I opened my eyes. I said, what's going on? I never realized, how great the country was until I started going around and seeing what's going on here.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure we take a lot for granted here. We sure
Exactly.
Okay, so we have May.
Hi, I'm May.
Hi.
Stolen from you and your family during the Shoah.
I'm sorry, didn't it?
So what was stolen from you and your family during the Shoah?
What was stolen from me? Wow. Yes. The finer things of life. What was stolen? In other words, I didn't have things like you guys did. you know, even when I came to the States, I couldn't afford, you know, all these other things. In other words, as an example, you guys had like bikes as an example. I never had any, you know, a bike or anything, even when I came to the States. I didn't learn how to swim, as an example. I didn't have. I don't think I couldn't find any swimming pools in the forest, so out there. So a lot of things are stolen. Of course, the biggest thing is the family. In other words, I really didn't know my grandparents. All I remember, my grandmother, one of my grandmothers, I think, came with us from Poland into Russia, but then she was pretty old. So when we traveled further in to Siberia, she couldn't go. Obviously, the Germans invaded that part, and she was killed. I had uncles and aunts that were killed in the Holocaust. So it's pretty difficult to try to understand as to what happened. However, in other words, we don't even know how most of our family were killed, because they wound up in concentration camps, and that's the worst part of it, not knowing what happened to the relatives and not really knowing my grandparents. That's you guys should be, you know, very fortunate if you have grandparents. I would ask them about, you know, what happened to them, where they came from, and things like that. Even if I try to ask my parents once we came to the United States, you know, about their lives in Europe, they didn't want to talk about it. It hurt them too much to talk about it. So I think I can advise all of you to really to speak to your parents, grandparents, and get some information. Unfortunately, I can't do that. You know, they all my grandparents, uncles, and aunts. In fact, my mother had a big family. She had actually 6 brothers, and most of them are older, and they had kids already. So the only one was survived is one of the uncles. The rest of them were all murdered. So that's pretty much what.
Yeah, and then you have no idea how big your family would have been had
Oh
everyone
yeah.
been
Oh
married.
yeah. It would have been, yeah. Right now, thanks goodness, you know, we have 2 kids and 4 grandchildren, and so that's the family.
Yeah,
It's really,
yeah.
one of the uncles actually wound up in England after, so he passed away not too long ago, but that's about it. And the one also that my cousin in Israel, he also passed away. Like I said, he was like 10 years older, and now he just passed away recently. So that's pretty much it. So you have to be thankful. At least I'm thankful for what I have, which is like an immediate family. So we try to stay close.
Yeah, yeah. I talked to another, his mother survived the Holocaust, but he said he never asked her many questions.
Yeah.
And she died when he was 24, and he regrets. He was like, I had that opportunity and I didn't care at my age, and now he wishes he would have.
Exactly. That's why I'm telling. And anytime that I speak to students, you know, if you have a chance, talk to your parents, grandparents. So, you know where they came from.
Now, this next question goes along the line with it, but we'll have Sierra ask.
What lesson do you want to impart in young people today? Well,
first of all, you heard my story, you see what happened to me, and I don't want you guys to have pity, on me. The only thing I want you to understand, try to make the world better. Just speak out when you can against hate and prejudice. That's what happened during the HaShoah, the Holocaust. People, there were hate. There was, as you probably read some of the things about, as far as, when Hitler is concerned, he wanted to make a pure race, which is the German race. And that's when it all started. So the only thing I can ask you as far as young people is concerned is stay away from hate, prejudice. That's the best thing that I can tell you. It doesn't do any good for any of us.
Did you have to deal with much anti-Semitism? But you were very young. I don't know if you remember any.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was very young. Not really. I mean, I was not aware of any. We lived in a small town, and I'm not aware. Like I said, I was really like too young, and of course there was. There was a lot of anti-Semitism in Poland once we came back, and that's probably one of the reasons why my parents. Of course, I was young. One of the reasons that my parents wanted to leave, to go somewhere else. They saw there was a lot of anti-Semitism over there, and one of the problems, from what I understand, is that a lot of the houses that the Jewish people lived, which they vacated, and a lot of the Poles took over the houses. So evidently, when some of the Jews were trying to go back, they weren't going to leave. So
yeah, I've heard that a lot. Yeah,
you probably heard of
yeah,
that.
awful. It's awful.
Right. Well, it happened, and I can understand. To some extent, I can understand the reason for them also. They thought this was their house, from now on. So I can understand that.
How about in the United States when you were growing up? Did you face much anti-Semitism?
No, not really. Like I mentioned to you, when I went to school, the students, they thought I was just a German exchange student. So I didn't really tell them anything different. It's quite interesting though. Years later, when I went back, we had reunions, and then somebody had asked me, what you've done and things like that, and I started telling them a little bit about the Holocaust. They said, "What?"
I didn't know you were Jewish.
No, like I told you before, I was trying to fit in. That's why I didn't even talk about it. I figured, like, I was listening to my parents when they said, we brought you here, forget about what happened and make the best out of it. And that's what I've been trying to do all along. And that's why I live in Florida in the sunshine. When I have a chance, I had a chance.
He spends the winter in Florida, so we're all jealous here.
Well, I don't know. How much time do we have? We have a little time here?
Yeah, we have 10 minutes and we only have the last question about the candle. So
okay, because I wanted to read something else.
So you can do whatever you want.
I'll read a poem to you, which is very interesting, by a teenager. You want me to do this after the last question, or?
No. We can end with the last one. You go ahead, read your poem.
Okay, this is interesting. Because we were talking about, about the Holocaust as what happened and how did it happen? Why did it happen? This was a teenager. Well, he was 13 years old. He wrote a poem, and it's the question: why? Why did this happen? Mother, help me understand. Explain the reason why. They killed and tortured human beings. Why did they have to die? Father, perhaps you know the answer that I seek. When a nation committed awful crimes, why did no one speak? Teacher, you are so wise. Help me. Help me understand. When victims cried out loud for help, why no one lent a hand? People of this great big world, tell me, is it so? When the innocent were slaughtered, why you claimed you did not know? None of you can answer. My heart is filled with shame. For what you give me are excuses. Is there no one here to blame? I mean, I picked this up a few years ago that someone gave me, and it's a good article, a poem, what a teenager, 13 years old, thought about the Holocaust, about the Shoah.
Yeah, and I think we see that a lot in what we read of where is everyone else? What is everyone else doing? Why are we alone? Who is here to help us? And yeah, that feeling that there should be is crying out for help and no one's there.
Well, look, I mean, the Holocaust was awful. And look, even now, there's so many people all over the world being punished, being killed. Why? That's always the question. What can we do about it? The only thing we can do about it is speak out and stay away from hate and prejudice. That's every time that I speak to students, I try to tell them, because you know what, it can happen again. It can happen again if if we continue, not to speak out.
Is there anyone for whom you'd like this candle? If so, can you tell us a little bit about that person?
Well, there's not only one person. I guess it would be the whole family that perished during the Holocaust. That I had, like I told you, I had so many uncles, great parents, well, I didn't have any great grandparents. In Europe, a lot of people died in their 50s and 60s. So I would like to light this candle, for my uncles and parents, great parents rather. I can light the candle here. I mean, also, this would be a good time to light a candle for the 6 million Jews that perished, and actually also for the 1.5 million children that perished during the Holocaust. A lot of them really didn't even know what the Holocaust was all about. They were so young. But at that time, unfortunately, the Nazis, they didn't care how old the kids were. A lot of them, perished, in all over, everywhere, not only Germany, Poland, and other areas where the Germans conquered, Europe. So that's why I'm lighting this candle. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's anything else.
Some questions from would you take some questions?
Yeah, if anybody.
Anyone have a question? So the woods, yeah. Did your family build shelters in the woods?
Yes, there were several. Yes, any type, whatever you could find to set up a shelter. Some of them are pretty good, but most of them, because what was happening as we were getting into the woods, a lot of times we were chased by the Germans, by the army, so we had to keep on going deeper and deeper into the woods. So sometimes we stayed one night, sometimes 2 nights. A lot of times we just had to keep on moving. If you ever get a chance, there's a movie that came out a few years ago by the name of Defiance.
Well, we watched it. Did you
guys watch it?
You should watch it. Yeah, we watched that. I thought that was fascinating. Now, did you have a large group like that, or was it just family?
No, we were in a much smaller group. But now those people in the movie Defiance, they actually survived like 4 years living in the forest. You can probably remember what it was like. Although,
Yeah, they were starving a lot.
yeah, I guess they also had trouble, getting into on the Russian side, because most of in other words, like there were like 3 million Jews that lived before the war in Poland. 80% of them perished during the Holocaust. So the ones that survived, like ourselves, we're the ones that spend the time during the war in Russia. Although, it was not great, but those are especially there's from other countries, they survived different ways, but as far as the Jews in Poland, that's most of them that were able to 10% survived. Most of them, like they were in the Ural Mountains in Siberia.
Yeah, I saw it's called Escape to Siberia, and usually people are trying to get away from Siberia, but that's where we're safe.
We didn't have much of a choice, because actually we were very fortunate, because when we got into Russia, they drafted my father into the Russian army. So what the Russians were trying to do is to take the families and to take them as far away as they could, away from the front.
Okay, and then take the men as the soldiers.
Right. So in other words, also like one of the uncles there that also survived, he also, he didn't have much of a choice. He was drafted into the Russian army. And most of and like anything else, with at that time, the dictator was Stalin, and he didn't like, first of all, he didn't like the Jews, he didn't like the Poles either. So if you were a Pole, what they did, they sent them right up to the front, hoping they would get killed. So, although my father was injured, I mean, he had, but somehow he was to survive and so did my uncle. But a lot of the Poles and the Jews that try to go across didn't make it, because especially, I don't know if you learned much about the Battle of Stalingrad. That was that's the big battle that the Germans, if they would have
the turning point. Yeah, if they would have won.
a turning point, because it was winter. It was the winter, and if they would have gotten into Stalingrad, which is the capital at that time, who knows what?
Right.
We
So crush
might,
them the other way.
that we might all be speaking German right now. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. If there's anything else, you can either send me a text or any other questions. I'll be happy to answer.
Oh, we definitely will. We'll
Okay.
keep in touch with you.
Well, thank you for listening to what I have to say.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Quick, say
Take
goodbye.
care. Bye-bye.
See ya.